Hello, sexist, lying, hypocritical bigots. I got that wrong. There's another adjective in there somewhere.
Sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot.
Thank you very much. Welcome to another installment of Was It Great or Were You 8? This time, Christy is the 8-year-old and the movie is 9 to 5.
This is a thing I love that we do. Every once in a while, we go back to films we loved from our childhood to determine, were they truly great, or do we just remember them fondly through the prism, the gauzy lens of nostalgia?
Exactly.
But I'm picking one that I think I know the answer to before we even begin this conversation, and that is 9 to 5.
Now just sit right here.
I'm going to lose my job.
Violet, now just calm down.
I'm no fool. I've killed the boss. You think they're not going to fire me for a thing like that?
This is a movie that, in its day, I think was kind of groundbreaking in its desire to talk about women's issues in the workplace. You know, I think a lot of like 30s screwball comedies probably did that, but not with like the candor of this. So you have this fantastic ensemble of Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, and Dolly Parton. This is Dolly Parton's first film role, right?
Yeah.
And
the first time Jane and Lily worked together.
Right. And so, which they, of course, have had a lovely, long collaboration since then. So it's 1980. It's in Los Angeles. All three of them work at this completely nebulous place called Consolidated Companies, right? I think I realized when I was 8 years old, like, I didn't think about what Consolidated did. There are files. This is Xerox room. But looking at it now, I'm like, what the fuck do they do? Do they make widgets?
Widgets, exactly. They move widgets and transfer widgets.
Into the Ajax warehouse. They make widgets. Lily Tomlin is Violet. She is the veteran there. She is so capable and so experienced. But what ends up happening is that she trains these men who then leapfrog her up the ladder and they become executives, and she is still stuck toiling at the same level for far too many years. Dolly Parton is the secretary to the horrible boss, played by Dabney Coleman, and she is gossiped about all the time because people think that she's having an affair with him, and he chases her around the desk and like makes her, you know, go on vacations with him, which are supposedly work trips. Dolly Parton's Dorley Rhodes. Jane Fonda is Judy Bernley. And Judy Bernley, please hold. Judy Bernley, please hold. And she is new. She is newly divorced. She's in the middle of divorce. This is the first time she's ever really had a job. And so it had the three of them come together. This very unlikely friendship forms between them. And they get high together and fantasize about killing Mr. Hart. And then one thing leads to another, and they think they actually have done that. And madcap hilarity ensues. I saw this so many times when I was a kid. And like it was December of 80, it came out. I think what it was is that it was on cable a lot that following summer. Mm-hmm. Summer of 81. I must have watched this like 1,000 times, so much so that it's like, it's in me. It's in the fiber of my being. I hadn't seen this in so many years, but I knew so many lines. Like when Lily Tomlin sees Jane Fonda get off the elevator and says, "We're going to need a special locker for the hat." I mean, things like that. And when the mail guy comes through and goes, "Lady, you're going to hate it here." Like all these little like lines that aren't even the most famous lines from this movie, I just knew in my head. So I had no idea about what it was like to be a woman in the workplace. I had no idea about getting high and having the munchies for barbecue. I just knew that these women had incredible chemistry with each other. And the writing is so snappy and so lively. And it just becomes this really funny screwball comedy, but there's always this bite underneath it. There's always like this bite of truth underneath it that I must have known. I don't know. And there's a lot I didn't get, but I remember sitting in the theater and there are certain lines that inspired like people to applaud. The line when Jane Fonda's ex comes to see her at the house where they're keeping Mr. Hart. And she says like, "This is where you get off.
Hit the road, Buster. This is where you get off."
And then she slams the door on him and the music's like, da, 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 da. The place erupted in applause. And I remember this from like childhood. That line, the line where Violet has the doctor's little...
What the hell am I talking to you for?
I'm a doctor. What the hell am I talking to you for? Piss off. Like I remember that got huge laughs. So looking back at it now, I still really love it, you know, and what's sad about it is how relevant so much of this still is. Me Too was only a few years ago. The idea of women being sexually harassed at work, but having nowhere to go so they can't do anything about it. That's Dora Lee's situation with Mr. Hart. So I really loved it all over again. What did you think?
Yeah, no, it's really entertaining. I had not seen this in a while, and it does hold up, and it is unfortunately still very relevant. Like, we have these waves of, like, 9 to 5 came out in 80, and then I remember the Anita Hill hearings taking place a few years later, and it felt like, oh, what? Sexual harassment at work? Like, this was somehow news to people. And then Me Too, it was all over again. It's like, why do we keep having these conversations when we know this is happening? This movie fits into a genre that I like to call Jane Fonda learns things. In Coming Home, she learned the Vietnam War was not all that it was cracked up to be. In the China Syndrome, she learned that nuclear power plants are not all that they're cracked up to be. And this is one where, she learns that, like, the women in the workplace have a hard time of it. But thank God that she made these movies, because certainly now HBO maybe, but like, get in a theater to actually have a movie that is entertaining, but at the same time addresses a relevant, contemporary issue. There are very few and far between. And the key here is that it is entertaining. Like, this is a movie that says a lot, that did definitely add to the conversation about women in the workplace, but is a funny farce, and so it's hard to do those two things at the same time. And I think this movie absolutely does. It's co-written by Patricia Resnick with Colin Higgins. And Colin Higgins was probably best known at that point for having written the screenplay for Harold and Maude. But this was the second of 3 films he directed before he died of complications of AIDS. He made Foul Play, which is a fun play on, like, Hitchcockian thrillers, 9 to 5, and Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, which is a lot of things, but it has its
also
moments.
Dolly, though.
Also Dolly, yes. And it's where she's saying, I will always love you. This movie, I think, does hold up in a lot of ways and is really entertaining. It has a fun, brisk pace. Dabney Coleman is a great villain. Just the characters in the office, like, Roz, who's the suck-up spy, and like the Lush, and all these sort of different character types that I'm sure you people who've worked in offices will recognize. A precursor to things like The Office. This is very much a workplace comedy, and not that invented it. Like the Mary Tyler Moore Show had already been on. There were a lot of other ones, but this one, I think, more specifically, and actually kind of touching on issues that would occasionally come up when Mary Tyler Moore, like, why am I making less money than my male counterparts? And why, and the idea being, oh, well, he had a family to raise, that kind of nonsense, which were actual excuses that were proffered in the workplace.
Right.
So
Violet was a widow with 4 kids.
Exactly. Yeah. And so they pull that one on her, and even when at the end of the movie, when the chairman of the board comes sweeping in and really admires the big changes that Hart has made, even though it's the 3 women that made them, the one that's got to go is equal pay, for women. So, the struggle continues.
One thing I noticed this time around was the titles, the opening titles. First of all, they're shot in San Francisco, but the movie actually takes place in Los Angeles. But also the women, it's all women. It's women's shoes, women's purses, women getting on and off the bus, women like hurrying to work. And that's who you see, like, are the engine that makes the economy go.
Right.
It's all women getting off the elevator, going to their typewriters. So that I appreciated. And like the exposition is so zippy, like establishing all 3 of these women, they're so distinct. They establish that so quickly and so vividly. It's like, oh, okay, I know who they are. Now we can go on along with them on their adventures.
Yeah, like, and you have a scene where, like, we have to establish that Lily Tomlin gets a joint and knows how to install a garage door opener, but that scene is fun in and of itself. It's not just there as a sort of placeholder to let you know what's coming down the road that's going to matter. And so, there's a real a skill, I think, in writing those kind of scenes. The other thing about that opening montage, which is brilliantly edited and it's like its own little short film, Dave pointed out, this is before women figured out that you commute in your sneakers and then put the heels on once you arrive at the office.
Right. That's Working Girl. She figures that out.
Yes. Sybil Shepherd, I think, was a real pioneer in that thing. Also, that was her thing, where if you couldn't see her feet on camera, she was wearing sneakers.
That was really funny. There's so much here that is like very clever filmmaking filmmaking, like the thing with the Xerox machine going haywire on Jane Fonda, and there's a shot from behind the machine with the papers coming down in the slat. So
Yeah.
there's some visual panache here besides just the fact that the dialogue is so great, and like stuff they do with the cadaver, wheeling the cadaver and having him in the trunk. Like they just do some fun visual stuff with the storytelling as well.
Yeah.
So many funny lines. Lily Tomlin's delivery is great. They all just have amazing chemistry with each other. A couple of little location things. The building where they work is a big high rise at 6th and Flower in downtown LA. The big Tudor where Hart lives is in Bel Air, and I believe it belonged to the Chandler family, who used to own the LA Times.
Okay.
So
yeah, it's funny. It was one of those movies where I thought, do they know? Do they think we're going to think this is New York City? And then I found like, oh, no, they're in LA. Like, because you're so used to movies about like offices and high rises being in Manhattan. But I just thought they were being lazy about it. And then realized, no, we're in LA. That's what's happening. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely did not get a lot of this when I was a kid.
Well, sure.
But like looking back at it now, it's still great. So I'm going to go with 9 to 5 is great. What do you think?
Absolutely great. Yes, it holds up for a reason, and I think it's set off a lot of stuff. Dolly Parton's acting career. The ongoing Fonda Tomlin partnership. And it is still a movie to point to when we talk about issues that still exist in the world. So,
and that song is damn catchy. That song was a
yeah.
radio hit back when songs from movies were big radio hits. 9 to 5.
Yes.
Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen. Like you can see that it's so vivid. So.
Pour myself a cup of ambition. And apparently it was a big deal for Dolly Parton to get stoned in her first movie.
Oh.
She was worried that her fans would be mad about that.
Oh, they don't care about a little old thing like that. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. And we'll have another one very, very soon. Alonzo will pick the next Was It Great or Were You 8? Let us know what you think about 9 to 5. Till then, see you soon.